What is going on, guys? It's Modded Warfare here. Welcome back to another PS4 tutorial. So in this tutorial what we're going to be doing is we're going to be looking at how to host the WebKit exploit locally over your local area network rather than relying on those DNS servers, which are good, but you know, unfortunately whenever you're using an exploit that's been hosted over the internet, it's typically a lot more unstable. You run into a lot more out of memory errors, and although hosting it locally isn't perfect either, it's definitely a lot more stable and you get less out of memory errors. And you know, there's plenty of reasons why. A lot of people don't even want to be connecting to the internet at all when they're on their jailbroken console. So that's another thing. You still have to be connected to your local area network for this, but you don't have to be connected to the internet as well. So yeah, a few different reasons there why you might want to host it locally. So, and yeah, there's a few different ways to do that. So I'm going to show you a couple of different ways that you can host it locally. Mainly we're going to look at how to get the user guide to automatically redirect to an exploit so that we can inject, say, like the enable browser patch, because of course normally if you can't get onto the WebKit using the internet method with those DNS server addresses, then you're not going to be able to unlock the internet browser in the first place. So you're only going to be able to use the user guide, but I'll show you both in this video. So yeah, first method is really easy. Now the first thing you need to do is you need to go ahead and download Python. So for this first method you're going to need Python version 3.6.4. So go ahead and download, install it. It's a basic installer. I'm not going to go over that. It's very simple. You know, next, confirm, install, and then it's done. So once it's installed, you're going to download the PS4 exploit host. Now this is the Windows version. It's just a handy little exe executable file. So all you have to do is double click it and it should say the servers are running. Now yes, you may get an error that says something like TCP/80 is already being used. That's because it's probably being used by another application on your computer, so just turn off any background applications. Skype uses port 80, so that will stop this from working if you have Skype open. Certain other applications. If it says TCP/53 it's already being used, then that may be because you are using connection sharing on your computer to share your computer's connection with your PS4. In which case you'll have to maybe use wireless instead on your PS4 because you need to turn off connection sharing, or use a network bridge instead if you absolutely have to connect that way. And then that way the servers should work. So assuming you do that, you get the servers running. It says your DNS IP is 192.168.1.64, so that's just the local IP address of your computer. So leaving that open. Now another thing you might want to do is you might want to disable your firewall if you have a firewall on your antivirus, because that can often block this from working. Okay, and to test to see if it's working, you can actually just hop on your browser and type in the IP address of your computer, and you can see it says this PS4 is not supported on the firmware. That means it is working. It's being hosted on your local area network. Alright, so when you're on the PS4, what you want to do is head over to settings. Now if we go to the user guide, you'll see that it should load the normal user guide right now. Everything's normal. So what we're going to do is go to network, set up an internet connection, use whichever method you prefer to connect to, Wi-Fi or Ethernet. Do custom, then just select your Wi-Fi network, enter your Wi-Fi password if you're on Wi-Fi. Obviously that will not prompt you if you're on LAN. Okay, so at this point we're going to do automatic IP, do not specify DHCP, we're going to do a manual DNS, and of course we're going to enter the IP address of our computer. That's the IP address you want to enter in here. Then we'll do next, automatic MTU, do not specify proxy, and the internet settings have been updated. So now when you go to the user guide, boom, there you go, you get the exploit host. And then you can do 4.55, and then there's all your payloads that you can inject. And it's much faster, and you can inject it, and you're less likely to run into as many out of memory errors. That's one way of hosting it. And also, if you already had access to the web browser already, then you don't even have to add that as a DNS. You can just go straight to that address in the web browser and it'll take you right here as well. So you can do that too if you've already, got the enable browser patch injected. Okay, so that's one way of hosting it, and that's probably the easiest and fastest way of hosting the WebKit and getting it set up. But if for whatever reason it's not working for you, I'm going to show you two other methods that you can use as well. So let's go ahead and back onto the PC here and have a look at that. So the next method is to create your own server and host it on that. What you want to do is go ahead and download Xampp from the link. I'll try and put it in the description. This one will do, the top one. It's just an installer, so download it, install it. Once it's installed, you can then type in or search for Xampp, and you'll find the Xampp control panel. So if you open that up, what you want to do is start Apache. That's the only one you need. So you start up Apache, and then when you've started Apache, if you open up your web browser and you type in localhost into your web browser, you should get this page showing up or something similar, and that means it is working. Now also, if you type in the IP address of your computer, it should also take you to the same place. If it doesn't, then again, disable your firewall in any of your antivirus softwares, because that might block it if it's not working. But yeah, so we've got a local server. It just sets up a local server on our local area network. So what we want to do is basically take the exploit files and put that on the server. So Xampp's location where the web pages are stored and displayed are in C, or wherever you installed it to, whatever drive you installed it to, and then Xampp, and then htdocs, and then basically right here. So you can delete everything else that's in here right now. So delete everything in htdocs, and then from the PS4 exploit host, you can just take, say, the 4.55 folder in the exploits folder and just drag that in here, and that should pretty much do it. So if you're just wanting to do this through the internet browser, then this should actually work. So let's hop back over to the PS4. Back onto the PS4 here. So if you go to the internet browser now and you type in the IP address of your PS4, if you have access to the internet browser, you'll see it'll take you here. So index of, and then you've got your 4.55, and then you've got all your payloads in here, and then you just select one like original, and it starts loading the exploit. Pretty simple. And yeah, that worked pretty fast. No out of memory errors, except there normally is one here, but that's fine. It did work. So yeah, that works. Now that's all well and good, but obviously that's not going to work when you go to the user guide. You see, I'm just getting a white screen now because I still have my computer's IP address added as the DNS, but I don't have the PS4 exploit host thing running. So I'm just getting, yeah, page can't be displayed. So if you don't have access to the web browser yet, then that's not really going to help you. But there is a way to again set this up so that the DNS will redirect manuals.playstation.net to your Xampp server. So to do that, what we're going to do back on the computer again is you're going to want to make sure you download Python version 2.7.14 this time. You can have both installed at the same time, I'm pretty sure. So yeah, make sure you have 2.7.14 for this method, and then what you want to do is go ahead and also download this fake DNS master. Okay, so then what you want to do is go to the hard drive that you installed Python 2.7.14 to. For me, that's the C drive. Then you'll have a folder in there called Python 27. So you want to go in there, and then you want to copy your fake DNS.py into that folder. Then what you want to do is create a new sort of text document file, call it DNS, and change the file type to config file, so conf. So dns.conf, press enter, yes to confirm, and then just edit that file in Notepad or Notepad++. And what you want to do is add this line, which I'll put in the description so you can just copy and paste it in right in here. But you want to do uppercase A space manuals manuals.playstation.net space then the IP address of your your Xampp server, which is the IP address of your computer. So just like that, save it, and then we can now run this script by clicking up here on your URL bar and putting in cmd space right here and press enter. So I'll just open a command window in that directory, and then what you want to do is just type in fake dns.py space -c space and then the config file, which is dns.conf, and there you go. So parsed one rules from dns.config. So now that that's done, if you go back on, and again make sure that your firewall's off, so make sure your firewall's off in your antivirus. Then what you want to do is go to your PS4, and again make sure that you still have your computer's IP address added as your DNS server, like we did last time with the PS4 exploit host. So same thing, make sure your DNS is added. And now when we go to our user guide, you see we get this. So object not found, that's because it's looking for document GB PS4 index.html, which we haven't added that folder structure. But that's fine, because you should see that there's this this link here that takes you back to the root directory, which will take you back here, and then you can just go to 4.55, and then there's all your payloads again. You can load them, and there you go. Simple. Okay, so one other little thing that I'll also add right here is what happens if, say you're using a different version of Apache or something, and there is no option here to go back to manuals.playstation.net, then you can solve that by just creating the folder structure yourself. So to do that, so we need to set up the folder structure, which if you look on PlayStation, in fact right here, you can see the folder structure is there's a document folder, then there's a GB folder for me. If you're in Canada, it's probably CA, or if you're in the US, it's probably US. So bear that in mind. So for me, it's document/GB and then PS4, and then the index files in there. So if I just recreate that structure by creating a document folder, and then in the document folder we create a GB folder for me anyway, and then in there we create a PS4 folder. It's probably case sensitive. It might not be actually, because I'm hosting it on Windows, but still, just in case. And then you want to create your index file in here, which I'll just create. Actually, I'll just open up Notepad++, and I'll just create a quick HTML file. You don't really need to know much HTML. If you've got Notepad++, you can set the language to HTML as well. But yeah, so HTML, just create a HTML tag, open and close, and then we'll just create a link tag in here, which just basically links back to the root directory, which if you just put /, that'll redirect back to the root directory, and /a to close the tag, and we'll just call it, I don't know, root directory. That should link back to the root directory, so we can just save that, and again save it in your Xampp folder, in your htdocs, document GB PS4, and then call it index, so it's index.html, and there it is right there. So now back over to the PS4 here, if I refresh, boom, there we go. It takes us to that little HTML file I made, and there's our root directory link, and if I click it, boom, it takes us back to the root directory, and we can then access all of our payloads. So there you go. There's multiple ways of doing it. I'm not saying that that's the most clever way. It's kind of a stupid way of doing it, really, but it works. There's plenty of other ways to do stuff, but we're not done. We're not done yet, because there's one other thing that we can do. Well, there's probably plenty of other other methods, but there's one other method I'm going to show you. Okay, so the next method that I'm going to show you is an alternative to using the DNS. Instead of using the fake DNS, if that isn't working for you and you're just getting a white screen, or for whatever reason, you know, you're putting your computer's IP address as the DNS server in your PS4, it just doesn't work. There's another method where you can also basically do the same thing, get the manuals.playstation.net to redirect to your Xampp server. And to do that, we can use something called host mapping. It does require a bit more setup though, so you have to use either one of two things. You either have to connect your computer to the PS4 through an Ethernet cable and use connection sharing to share the internet connection from the computer to the PS4, or you can set up host mapping in your router if your router supports it. So I'll try and put a picture up, but so with host mapping you have to enter a URL, so you would put in manuals.playstation.net and then it would ask you for an IP address, and you'd put in the IP address of your Xampp server, which is 192.168. whatever, mine's 1.64, so I would put that in, and then that should redirect me. Now if you don't have host mapping set up on your in your router, you don't have that option, then like I said, you head to your network settings here and you share. So you would check this box to allow other network users to connect, and you choose your Ethernet adapter, and there you go. And then basically at that point you can now edit your computer's host file in C, Windows, System32, then drivers, etc, and then host file, and then you want to edit this in Notepad or Notepad++, and then you want to add down here 192.168.1.64, the IP address of your Xampp server, and then add a space and then do manuals.playstation.net and then save it. We've got to reload that as administrator, then save. Okay, so what that's going to do is the same thing. It's going to, every time you type in manuals.playstation.net into your internet browser, it's going to redirect it to this IP address instead. So I can do that as an example. Manuals.playstation.net redirects to the Xampp server, you see. So with that, because we've set it up so that your PS4 is connecting through the computer's connection, it will also do the same thing. It will also be influenced by the host file, and it will redirect it. So just to show that, we go back on our PS4, we go to settings, network, set up an internet connection, use a LAN cable, and then just choose easy as your option, default, so it's not set to the server. But even though it's not set to the server, if I go to the user guide, there you go, takes me here, root directory 4.55, there's all our payloads. So yeah, that's another option. You can do it within the user guide as well. So this method I don't believe works with the user guide, but it will work with the internet browser, and that is that you can actually host the exploit on your phone. If you have an Android phone, there is a way that you can actually host it on your phone. So yeah, you need to go ahead and download this APK file, which again I'll link it in the description. And you want to, install that on your phone. So go to the site on your phone and install it. And then what you want to do is go ahead and start it right here. Allow to access photos, medias on your device. So updated payloads. Okay, so then you've got all the payloads right here. So you just select the one that you want it to host. So let's say the Homebrew Enabler, for example. So we select Homebrew Enabler, and it's saying that it's now hosting that. Don't know how easy that is to see for you guys, probably really difficult. Might try and zoom in, but http://10.0.2.15. Now what you've got to bear in mind is that if your phone is connected to your mobile data, then you need to make sure that your PS4 is connected to the same network. So what you'll have to do, if you don't have a router, then you're going to have to turn your phone into a Wi-Fi hotspot and then connect to it on your PS4. And then that way, you'll be on the same network as your phone on the PS4 so that you can access the exploit page. Alternatively, if if you're at home and you've got your router and your PS4 is connected to your router, then just make sure that the phone is also connected to your Wi-Fi instead of your mobile data. And then the IP address will be something like 192.168. something, not 10.0. something. So just bear that in mind. So just as an example, you can see mine's 10.0.2.15. So if we go to that on our web browser, so we go to http://10.0.2.15 and then :8080 is the port number. And then as you can see, it's trying to send the payload, but obviously on a phone it's not gonna work. But you can see that is the page and it is trying to inject the payload. So once you've confirmed that, you can basically go ahead and try and access this on your PS4. But yeah, so just as an example, I'll show you what it's like on the PS4. Obviously this is running in an emulator, so it's not the network's not accessible on my local area network because it's running in an emulator, so I can't actually show you it, but I can show you essentially what happens. So on the PS4, when you have it hosted on your phone, you're going to just go to that same address on your phone. In fact, you should do http:// and then the IP address of your phone. So let's just say that was the IP address of my phone right there. And then we would do :8080. So just like that. And then when you go to it, so for you what would happen is this basically. It would just load this up, and then hopefully eventually it would enable the homebrew enabler like that. There you go, hens enabled, and then you can launch your custom package files. So yeah, you can either use internet connection sharing and modify your host file. You can either use host mapping, or you can use the first one I showed you, which was really easy, and set your DNS to the server address, and that's another way. So there's all these different ways that you can do it. There's even more ways. I'm sure people will put in the comments that there's a bunch of other methods to do it as well. So yeah, hope you guys enjoyed the video. You now have a crap ton of different methods that you can use to set up the WebKit. If you can't use the online ones, then you've got all these different options. So yeah, hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, go ahead and leave a like and subscribe. If you're new, comment if you have any questions, and I will hopefully see you guys in the next one.